Hello and welcome to the RSnake Show, Demo Day. So, for those of you who did not see the last episode, what we're doing is we're putting up demos, basically live from our perspective demos, where Trey and I have not seen this demo before, and we're going to see it for the first time. And part of the whole premise here is that we're trying to make it easier for you, the community, to basically get an opportunity to see things where you may not normally typically be able to do that because you have to go through marketing, you have to go through sales, there's this funnel. They really want to gatekeep before you get to see the thing. But we think there's so much interesting tech that demos extremely well, and it stands on its own. And this is just an opportunity to get vendors for free, an opportunity to show off their wares. But we get the opportunity to ask the tough questions. So today we have Haroon Meer from Thinkst, and he has very nicely said that he'd be willing to be our second victim. So let's just let him have the rope to hang himself. So good to have you, Haroon. Why don't you take it away?
Good to be here. That's the sort of intro that really warms the heart. Let's try hanging myself. Okay. I'm the founder of Canary. We've been around for a while, and basically what we build is a way to detect attackers that doesn't suck. So I'll put up a few slides to talk about it, and then we'll jump straight into the demo, and we can see how it goes. So I'm going to share my screen if I can. Let's try sharing this.
This is always the tense moment. Will it share?
See if I can figure out your software. Yep. And okay, so I'll skim through this stuff really quickly. Fundamentally, we build Canary to detect attackers before they dig in. And generally, the stats are all over the place. But what you'll see is even orgs that have spent bazillions on security generally don't know till attackers have been on there forever. The NSA, people think are 10 feet tall, and they didn't know till Snowden was on a plane on the way to Hong Kong. And periodically, you'll get different companies putting out different stats. But fundamentally, people find out that they've been hacked too late. Most of the early people in the company worked as pen testers, red teamers for a long time. And the reason we started Canary was because as pen testers, most orgs wouldn't know that we've owned them till we've handed in the report. Like, we hand in the report, and that's when they know that we domain admin or that we've taken all of the crown jewels. And so fundamentally, the way Canary works is simple. Attackers break in. However they get in, they're going to bounce around your network, look for loot, move laterally, make their footprint bigger. And instead, you sprinkle a few canaries on your network. And the logic is that while these attackers are moving around, they touch one of your canaries because they have to. And you get this one alert that tells you badness is happening. Now, something like honeypots have been a good idea for a long time. But people don't do them because it sucks. Because you're so busy managing your own network, you don't have time to manage other people's networks or fake networks. And this is why the idea has always been good, but you haven't seen it be pulled off. And there've been other deception companies, and you'll see you can become a product certified engineer, or you can go for training. And we've tried really hard to be the anti that. So our pitch is that Canary should work in minutes. And we've decreased the time. Like, when we first built Canary, it used to take 4 minutes to install. It's now quicker. It should be valuable immediately. Like, you get security products that demo well, you buy it, and then when you get owned in 2 years, the company issues a statement to say, well, they didn't really install us, we were in blocking mode, they didn't really deploy all the rules. Like, you buy a Canary, 5 minutes later, it's doing what it says for you. And going forward, there's very little that you need to do with it. So we've got customers now running us for 9 years, and they deployed us in year 1, and they just don't touch it. And periodically, it'll catch their red teamers, it'll catch their attackers. Literally, no work needed on an ongoing basis. Just in terms of how it works, you get canaries, you put them on your network, and they talk up to a console in AWS that manages them. Version 1 that we actually shipped these hardware devices, which is really strange. Like, why would anyone ship hardware in 2016? But again, the reason was making it simpler for security teams. So security teams can't always spin up a VM in someone's network. You just take a device, plug it in. You just acquired a new company, ship 5 canaries, plug them in, and they're good to go. Today, there's a whole bunch of virtual versions, all of the virtualization, all of the clouds. And conceptually, it's exactly the same. You plug it in, it shows up, and it's a canary running on their network. Again, with version 1, we just had alerts going out via email and SMS, and now you can get them in a whole bunch of things that we'll talk about. Fundamentally, our company makes canaries and canary tokens, but I'll stop there and demo canaries, and we'll come back to the discussion on canary tokens after that.
That's great.
Cool. So let's start with this. Like I said, when you buy the solution, you essentially get these physical hardware canaries, and they report up to a console that sits in AWS. If you follow our stuff, we just released a blog post on some of our design choices with this console. Again, most of us have been in InfoSec for a long time. The blog post, just for the geeks around, is on how we do something pretty old-fashioned. We use old-school isolated VMs. So we've got literally thousands of customers, but they don't log into a single multi-tenanted SaaS. And part of that reason is so that when somebody owns something in the app, they don't get to see other customer information. It's an old school form of isolation, but it's the sort of stuff that's deep in lots of our thinking. So customer logs in. What you'll have down there, you see I've got 2 physical canaries for us to look at. And you see a console that looks like this. And this is a pretty Spartan-looking console. And it's not because we're lazy. It's because we're one of the few vendors who are not trying to be your one pane of glass. Like I say, we've got customers who've used us for years that almost never log into this console because nobody's got time to manage our stuff. So if you log in really quickly, what you're seeing down here, there's 2 canaries. One that says it's shipping to me, which is why one of those hardware devices is currently switched off, and one that's currently on that believes it's a Cisco device. So I'm just going to grab the IP address of that Cisco device so we can look at it really quickly. And what you should see, if I could type, what I'm going to do is just take a look at what the Cisco would look like on the network. So if we run an Nmap scan, what you should notice is before the scan is done, canaries popped up with an alert. But if you look at the actual canary scan results, it's going to be interesting. So Nmap comes back and says, look, MAC address is a Cisco. Even Nmap's TCP/IP stack says, look, I believe this is a Cisco device. And then it's running Cisco-ish services. So if we just cleared that off and cleared off these alerts so that the console is cleaner, what we should see is, look, that thing said it was running old school telnet. Let's try to log in. We'll try the normal Cisco, Bob, or any of those. And again, what you'll see is while we're doing this, canaries come back and tell you, listen, there's a telnet attempt. Here's more information. And if you go in, it's going to give you the IP address, but you'll notice this time it also gives you the usernames and passwords that the person tried. And again, the central part of our pitch is, at this point, your canary is paid for itself. At 3 a.m, it's told you, someone from Bob's machine just tried to log into your Cisco, and they're using Bob's credentials. Here's the piece of thread that you need to pull on. And our whole pitch is that if we make it easy enough to drop these, it becomes a question of, well, why wouldn't you? Because if you just drop them, you're going to know when there's badness on day 1 instead of finding out about it 300 days later, like the average is. And of course, this canary was already set up. But what you'll see here is how we actually ship canaries to people today. So these canaries are cryptographically tied to these consoles. And once someone's getting a canary shipped, it'll show up on their console. They click on this, it'll take them all the way to the tracking till it shows up on their door. But literally, all that would be necessary here would be for me to plug this canary in. So once it arrives, once this canary arrives, I plug it in, and it's going to turn up by default as a Windows server on my network. And so if customers do absolutely nothing else, they just plug it in on day one, it's going to be a Windows server with working RDP, with working file share, just sitting on their network. And I'll show you in a bit, canaries can emulate a whole bunch of things. So canaries can be SCADA equipment, they can be file servers, they can be Linux boxes. But one of the dirty secrets of Canary is that around the world, just an open Windows file share has caught attackers on entry-level networks and super sophisticated networks. And one of the things that we didn't expect, or we didn't know how it would work out when we first built Canary, but it's one of the few times in InfoSec that we've seen a very happy inversion, where defenders have to do very little work, but attackers have to do quite a bit. And there's a few things I'll talk about that we honestly got lucky for. One of the things here that we got lucky for is we used to give a class at Black Hat for years on how to break into networks. And one of the things we actively trained people on was if you land on a network and there's 100 Windows machines and one Solaris box, go for the Solaris box. Because chances are this company knows how to admin their Windows, and they've got that Sun box sitting there as their SAN storage or as their telephony service. So look for the box that sticks out. You get on that, you'll get pieces of creds that'll take the network down. And of course, when we built Canary, we made them so that they can imitate other systems perfectly. But the thing that you get lucky with is they don't have to. If you make them really stick out and badly configure them, turns out attackers hit them also. So we can make a Canary look like SCADA equipment on your SCADA network, but I'll guarantee you if you make it a Windows server with an open file share, the sort of people browsing your SCADA network that see this just have to check what it is. And when they do, you get your alert telling you badness has happened. So if we take this box that we've just plugged in, I'll grab his IP address, and we can see what he looks like on the network. So I'm starting with Nmap, but we'll go into some of the other services. And here you'll see already you can net BIOS to it. You can see it's got other services running. So if we were, for example, to map to it, at this point, I'm connecting from a Mac, but you should be able to SMB to it. It's popped up a warning off my screen, so let's bring it here. So it's asking me for a username to connect as. I'm just going to go with guest at this point, and it offers me a bunch of shares. It's going to pop up every pop-up just off your desktop, and I'm going to have to drag it in. And what you'll see is at this point, it gives me a bunch of docs. The attacker tries to open it, and you again get your alert that tells you, listen, on this box, guest user tried to open this file. Now I'm going to ask for your indulgence for one more thing, because I told you that they were easy to set up, and of course I just plugged this one in. But you probably want to do a little more with your Canary. And part of our pitch is that the easy stuff should be dead easy, but it should be possible to do more complex stuff. So all we're going to do is take this Canary and say, listen, I don't want you to be a Windows box anymore. I want to reconfigure you. So you see a little configure Canary button down here. And down here, I'm going to go and say, listen, I want to make you a NAS storage device. So I give it a name. And you'll notice we have the concept of personalities here. So I'm going to click on the personality. I'll come back to this in a little bit. You'll see we have a bunch of them. But again, version 1 shipped with just 3 personalities. And if you asked me, it's useful just with 3. But today you've got tons of them. Like, you can make them a Jira server, you can make them a Joomla server, Sophos, whatever. So I'm going to say, hey, I want you to be a Synology NAS. And you'll notice as soon as I click that, it chose a whole bunch of presets for me. So it chose a MAC address, chose a TCP/IP stack fingerprint. I'm going to say this is sitting with me in Cape Town. And I'm going to leave everything else. Well, let's turn on port scan detection. And I'm going to leave everything else as is. You'll notice because it's a Synology NAS, it's going to have a share. So I'm going to go in here and say, okay, I want this share to look like, you create some files for me. Let's say I'm in aviation. And it's going to go create files and a file share for me. And I'm going to do nothing else. And I'm going to say, okay, deploy this. And what's going to happen now is this device periodically checks in. It's going to check into this console. The console's going to say, hey, I don't want you to be a Windows box anymore. I want you to be a Synology NAS. It's going to reboot. And the next time it comes up, it's going to be a disk station NAS on my network. A few things that are interesting and worth knowing there. One is these Canary devices that sit out on your network are actually talking via encrypted DNS to your console. So for the old school geeks in here, essentially it's using DNS tunneling to make things simpler for deployment. So you don't have to put them down, make holes for management traffic in your network. Literally, as long as the boxes can resolve a DNS name, it's going to communicate with the console. And we've been doing this for years. It'll push out updates. We push out full binary updates this way. You'll see this box has now, the light's gone off because it's rebooted. It's now going to come up again. It comes up red initially saying, hey, I'm up, but I'm not talking to the console encrypted yet. And in a few seconds,
I thought that was a static photo. That's actually a video that's live.
Yeah. So that's here on my desktop, and
awesome.
You can tell that those devices are not very big.
It's green. It's online. There it is.
That's a huge pen, by the way. It's about 5 feet long.
Exactly. It's all. Yep.
So, Haroon, as I was looking at this is a very cool demo so far. You have a bunch of things you can pick from, like aerospace, you said, or whatever industry you're in.
Yep.
This is actually one of the very few use cases for AI that might be really interesting, because you could say, I'm in some weird type of company and this is a weird type of environment. Go ahead and make files that look like this, and you could have an LLM go and create.
So it's actually how we're doing it. It's one of the few times. Yeah. So those lists are LLM generated, and it's not something we talk about because everyone who talks about LLMs is almost always trying to impress investors. But essentially that's what's happening there. Is you saying,
in this case, it adds obfuscation, which is really useful.
Yeah, it's a really cute use of it, and it works really nicely.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, so you'll notice he's back up here. He thinks he's a Synology NAS. And again, this is fairly straightforward. So I'll just go here and grab his IP address. This part of the demo should be pretty monotonous by now, which is Haroon typing nmap. But what you'll notice is nmap comes back Synology NAS. Services look Synology NAS-ish. And of course, if it's a Synology NAS, what it should mean is that if the attacker were to open a browser and surf to us, they're going to see a Synology NAS. And when they try to log in, you're going to get your alert telling you, listen, badness is happening on this thing. And this time we're going to grab more information. We're going to grab browser information. We're going to give you the headers. We're going to tell you that sort of badness is happening. So
wow, you've made many phishing sites out of all of these different products and services.
Yeah.
Which means you must have literally copied the HTML, made it perfect, everything down to the HTTP headers, everything.
Absolutely. So we spend lots of time on that stuff. because like you, in our previous lives, we spent time going, like, it's way ancient, but I wrote the Nessus Nazzle for can you tell service packs by the size of the returned 404, because you could distinguish. And so we spend time making sure that it's high enough fidelity to trick people until we can say we see badness. Because one of the logical questions people say is like, well, what happens when people start writing tools to identify you? Well, then we can identify them trying to identify us, and that's a good sign of badness. So you'll notice even on those alerts, we're not just saying you being port scanned, we're telling you being nmap minus old. Like, we can tell that someone's running a fingerprint scan on you right now, and you probably want to know why that's happening, because that's not a normal thing that should be happening on your network.
So you're running in promiscuous mode at the same time, then, it sounds like.
For the Canaries?
Yes.
So we try really hard to stay away from anything that could get your network owned, and it limits us for a bunch of things that we do. So one of the things, for example, is each of these devices or each Canary will only imitate one personality at a given time. And people sometimes want us to do more. And it's because in our previous lives, we've compromised a jillion security devices that were multi-homed and then used that to span VLANs on a network. So right now, it'll be one. We also won't, for example, be super chatty on networks. And so over time, we've really, like, as a company, what we spend our time on now is, can we find things that are really high fidelity alerts that are really easy to deploy? So version 1, for example, we used to alert on SNMP. And of course, you put a box down on most networks and you get so many SNMP hits that security starts ending up with false positives. And so we pulled SNMP out. Nobody who ever caught an attacker because they were running SNMP scans didn't also catch them when they connected to SSH on your box or connected to Telnet on your box. And so we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that our customers don't get lots of alerts. Like, if you've got Canaries, you're talking about a handful a year, not even handfuls a month. Because
so that's
by
super
default,
high signal. It's gonna be super low noise.
We've literally got customers where CTOs have told us they get Canary alerts going straight to their phone because it's such low noise. And that's what we work really hard.
And then you're also limiting the time that the attackers can spend on the network. That I like that feature, because I mean, it's one thing to detect it, but it's also, you have such high fidelity, they can pay attention to that signal.
And there's very specific signal items coming out, right? So it's not just an IP address. You've got durable data points that, you just fingerprinted the browser. You just captured a whole bunch of things that allows the threat response team to go and dig into where else have we seen this? What else have they touched?
This is Bob's credentials.
That's right.
Bob is the guy who got compromised.
That's right. So when we built version 1, like most people starting off, we built it, we threw it over the wall. And one of the things we figured out is, well, hold on, like, some customers didn't install us. Like, they bought us and then they had other drama and they didn't. And we were really proud of our we install in 4 minutes. And nobody did, or some people didn't do those 4 minutes, which is why we evolved to just plug it in. And we do a bunch of hackery on the background so that just works, but it does. And one of the other things we did is, on our end, we went crazy for, well, we threw an alert and it wasn't worth the customer's time. And so internally, the whole team works like crazy if those things happen. Because our whole pitch to customers is, if your Canary goes off, cancel your weekend plans. Like, somebody found the server, somebody mapped to the server, and somebody copied salaries.xls. You've got a problem that you need to go attend to. So it's not something that's going to spout a whole bunch of alerts. It's going to tell you. So I want to show you that config screen, which I blitzed through the last time, just for a moment. And if we go back slowly, if that's a word this time, I'll just show you some of it. Because
it's even the Afrikaans.
Yeah, exactly. I'm South African. I've got an excuse. If I went in here and let's say I just call this random for now. This time, if we go slower and look at the personalities, you'll see Windows boxes, Linux box, Oracle servers. And again, these personalities are pre-made templates. So if you said you wanted a Citrix gateway, it'll then configure everything to match that. But let's take something generic. Let's say we wanted you to be a Linux database. The first time we went through is what we encourage our users to do, which is, listen, you shouldn't overthink this. Go in, put it in, drop it in today. You'll be fine. Like something that we forget as defenders is how much time attackers spend on networks trying to figure out where they are, trying to fingerprint stuff. Like if you've done a serious pen test, you
don't know where you are. You've dropped into a black hole. You're blind. You don't know where you're living. You don't know what's nearby. It's loud.
It's death by 1,000 cuts, right? I found a half-configured LDAP server, found a username here. It was the same creds we got there. And so that thing really turns to your advantage. So if we take this box now, and if I go slower through this, you'll notice that the default was super easy. But if you've got a team that wants to do complex stuff, you can now start going in and saying, look, I'm running a web server, but I want to add custom HTTP headers to it. Or I'm doing SSL, but actually what I want to do is upload my own certs to this thing so that it matches the internal. And you'll see for all of the services, there's a bunch of stuff that you can do to then configure it. Again, like if we make it SCADA equipment, if we are Siemens PLC, like we'll talk good Modbus to people. And again, the way we've built the whole service, all of this is written in memory-safe languages, running in sandboxed environments. So if someone were to compromise a Canary, they know better off than they were before they compromised the Canary. And you now know that they're there. So what we've tried to remove, and where I think we've gotten stuff right, is we've removed the reason to put a Canary. Like people were like, yeah, but should I? But what if it gets compromised? But what if this happens? But do I have time for it? And so literally we're saying, listen, it's not going to hurt you if it gets owned, and it's going to take you shorter than it took to have this conversation. Just do it. Like just take 5 and put them on your network.
So can we talk a little bit about the cloud deployment? Because I think that's going to be a lot of people's questions as they're looking at this. Like, obviously, this makes a ton of sense on-prem. It's very easy to deploy, but unfortunately, a lot of people are cloud native. So how does this work?
Yeah. So almost exactly the way this goes, you go, okay, I want to add a new Canary. And in here you go, okay, I want to deploy a VMware Canary. Or if you said, I want to put one in EC2. And literally at this point, what would happen is we'd share an AMI with you. You'd boot this AMI into your cloud, and it would connect on this console exactly like anything else. So you'd now get a bird show up from AWS, and you configure it exactly like any other Canary. Again, all of these are made to be so trivially easy that there's no excuse not to. And once you enter cloud and virtual worlds, the stuff becomes in some ways easier. Like we've just released a post for some really big telephone dudes in the UK who now get to roll them out by the hundreds, because you can start leveraging all of the cloud stuff, all of the virtual stuff.
So how does that work? Because a lot of cloud-based servers are going to have a lot of tags associated with them, or they're going to have it's going to look more real than something that you just threw an AMI up and just ran it. So how do you kind of deal with that?
Yeah, so there's multiple takes on that, and one of them is going to come up when we start showing Canary tokens in a few minutes. But Canaries essentially aim to be machines booting in your environment, and so whether they in your cloud or whether they in your infrastructure, what we aim for here is boot machines in your infra. And so if you're booting them in your cloud, the same way you configured them to have IP address location, you'd have tags and stuff like that you can tag. But that's the version that we currently deploy. So yeah, EC2 as you're at this point, what we're doing is booting machines in your environment that you configure to look like your environment that then report when they touched. That would be where that ends. There's one other thing. Sorry, I just saw while we fly through this. Again, you'll notice interface-wise, we start off crazy simple, and underneath is all of the complexity if you wanted. So if you then said, look, actually, we've a really big org, and we want to create different, we want to start arranging our birds differently. So you can start getting moving birds around so that you have birds in different organizational units. And then all the stuff that you expect. So you can say, here's a reporting line and only they get these alerts, or only this stuff goes to those people. And all of that will just work. And
Just to make sure I understand that, so you have multi-tiered authentication. I can, if I'm a VAR, let's say, could I have... I can control multiple different companies. Yeah, like how does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. We don't like VARs doing that because of our security choices. So we've got lots of VARs, and what we do is allow them to deploy multiple consoles for their customer. We like the isolation and separating different customers that way. But what we will do is, if you're a big multinational corporation, you can then have security login and create these flocks for different countries or different organizational units, and different teams can then log in with different permissions to different flocks or to see their birds.
But you still have a way via API or something, I'd assume. So if
Absolutely.
I was a VAR, I could build my own model on top of your model.
It's exactly how it's done. And so I said version 1 was just email and SMS, and that quickly exactly the requirement that you speak about comes up. And so now we'll do APIs, we'll do webhooks, we'll do integrations so that all of the stuff, again, just works. But literally our pitch is that it should be dead easy in version 1 so that you can start with it for almost no time commitment. And then if you want to get complex, you can. So we've got multiple VARs who drop canaries at all of their customers. We've got MSSPs who do it. And again, it's almost a no-brainer, right? They get to drop it. They get to win when Canary wins. And on the back of that, they get to go in and sell services. So Canary catches stuff, and then they get to go do stuff. But we work hard to make sure that none of that is confusing for users on day one. So day one, out of the box, it just works. Even our pricing. So people can go to our website, canary.tools/quote, and you'll see the pricing, and you can add canaries or subtract canaries, and it'll give you more or less. But literally our first pitch to people was, listen, $7.5K, we'll give you 5 canaries and this console. Just try it. Like, how bad can it be? And essentially what happens is we don't have a big outbound sales team, but at this point we've got literally thousands of customers. And literally what happens is customers hear about us, they try it. Inevitably it picks up something on their network or picks up their pen testers, and then they go, hey, what we should do is put this in all our branch offices. Hey, we should expand this.
It's like a Dorito or something. You're just gonna eat the whole bag.
It's literally how we've gone from day one. So literally we still don't do any outbound sales.
Well, your recurring revenue must be insane, right? No one would ever pull this out. Like, why would they?
It's so considering we're a small company, like last year we cleared just under 20 million.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Thanks. And we like that we're able to do it without outbound sales, because even with our customers, like, we do zero upsell. And what we've got is we've had customers grow from 5 to 20 to 100 to like a country dropping it in all of their government departments for an event. But our pitch is, try it with 5. How bad can it be? Get comfortable with it. And then people generally expand their flock. I want to come back to tokens, but I'll pause there just to see if there was anything else on Canary itself, because tokens will distract us slightly.
Yes. Go ahead, Trey.
I was just noting that I saw the hooks and the alerting. Can you talk me through real quick at a high level to make sure we've covered that all the way off? So I have a high signal source. This is something I'm going to trust. I'm going to get excited. If Haroon's canaries get excited, I should be excited. That's
Yep.
The CISO Crayola level question. How do those alerts flow? What's the appropriate way for maybe the CTO and the CISO want an SMS ping, but we also want to know that this is routing into the SOC? Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, it's perfect. So again, like, our approach will seem almost naively simple. So initially we just do email SMS and people worked around it. And now with all of those webhooks that you saw, and the API, two things will happen. Like, the folks at Tynes have made integrations for it, or the SOAR people have made integrations for it. Splunk released a Splunk app for it. So out of the box on day one, you can go, okay, let's tie into my existing SOC pipelines. And the only difference is going to be that we're not going to shout as often as all of your other products do. So
Right.
You can do what it takes. And of course, we do multiple alerts, right? So you can take a syslog feed if you want, or you can use the API if you want, get your SMS if you want. And generally, the main pitch is going to be that we're so quiet that when you get your alert, you should do something about it. A tip for company founders, one of the things, like, I admit we got super lucky with, is if you build something that is so quiet, like, why do people pay you in year 2? And that might well have scuttled us. And what we get lucky with is pen tests, because people do pen tests, and inevitably their pen testers hit canaries, and we get loving messages, like, literally multiple times a week.
Well, these are adult companies that are doing real network pen test. I mean, some people
Yeah.
do the standard PCI web application edge pen test. They call it the pen test, and that's enough.
Yeah, well, mostly we, and it's slightly unfair to other people, because we get super lucky for exactly the same reason. Like, pen testers land, they expand their stuff, they start their testing, and it just by the nature of how canaries work, like, it's super common for us to get feedback saying, listen, like, we spend so much on security, and only our 20K worth of canaries alerted us during the last pen test. And we're like, yep, like, that's what they do. And so inevitably those people say nice things, and our business grows. But yeah, it's completely lucky, and it's slightly unfair, because by virtue of how canaries work, that's how they shine.
So along those same lines of thinking, so what's your? I'm just going to assume, I think I'm right, that the cost of this is very low compared to a lot of existing solutions out there on a total cost of ownership level. It's quick to deploy. You don't really do much. It just works. But it's not quite clear to me where the budget currently comes from, or is this just so low that any old executive can swipe a credit card and that's good enough? Like, it's within their discretionary budget, or where does this fall?
It's exactly that. So literally, version 1, we used to say to people, just spend $5K, you get the console for a year, and you get 3 canaries. We changed that to $7.5K to add. We want people to have 5 canaries when they start off, just because 5 gives them good early coverage and a chance to hit it. But at $7.5K, almost nobody has a budget problem starting off with it. And
Sure.
it literally falls in that. Like I say, I think there's 2 major objections people could have to trying stuff. One is, it's going to be costly. We're not. And the other is, it's just going to be pain putting this thing in. And so we work hard to say, hey, if we can be painless and add value on day one, and if we can be cheap, just try it. And then we just have to not suck, right? That at least gets you installed on day one. And then we have to not suck so that people keep you around. And so far, touch wood, it works for people. And that's been going strong. For the price of canary, so a canary, like I say, it ends up being like $1K per canary for as long as $1K per year. And then we also give you your own Canary token server. And tokens kind of needs their own explanation, and I know I'm going to run out of time, so I'll just go for it.
Why don't we just spend
quickly.
like 10 minutes on this so we don't run out of time completely?
Sounds good. So I'm going to do an odd thing and show you our public Canary token server, where canaries act like entire operating systems. Canary tokens are smaller tripwires. Okay, and the logic with Canary tokens is you embed them in places and they'll give you an alert when badness is happening. So canarytokens.org, we put up a server free, and literally it's been used millions of times. Again, we get mail a lot from people, Canary tokens that saved their bacon. And the very simplest version for someone who's never used it, you go to us and you say, okay, I'm Haroon at Thinkst.com, and I'm taking this URL and I'm putting it on my mom's desktop and create the token. We give you this URL, and when an attacker finds that URL on your mom's desktop and clicks on it, they get back something pointless, and you get back an alert telling you, listen, someone's that URL that nobody should see because it's on your mom's desktop, somebody just saw. And like at its simplest, that's Canary tokens. Of course, I just sent that mail to me instead of sending it to a demo user. So it's going to my mailbox. So let's
That's the most epic demo god failure I've seen. That's awesome. I love it.
Let's show RSnake demo. And again, the logic is straightforward. So someone visits the URL, and you'll get your alert in your inbox. And again, these things are made trivially easy, right? So you get your alert saying, listen, the RSnake demo, someone just clicked on it. Here's their browser details, blah, blah, blah. Now this stuff is easy and it's free, and everyone can use it. And we spoke about the web bug, like it's simple, right? It's embedded in mail clients. But what we do as a company is start spending lots and lots of time on finding those bugs that are really high quality, really high fidelity. Like one of my favorites is the AWS API key, right? So someone goes here, they say, I'm demo at Thinkst.com, and I'm putting this on my CFO's laptop. And what we're going to give you is a perfectly good AWS API key, which you save on your CFO's laptop, and you forget about it forever. And when your CFO gets compromised at Starbucks or at home, the sort of attacker you care about who sees an AWS API key has to try that key. And the moment they do, you get an alert telling you, listen, the API key that was only on your CFO's machine just got used. Now, if you take that, okay, so like that, there's tons of other tokens, right? And almost all these tokens are a Black Hat / DEFCON talk all on their own. So we're doing a bunch of trickiness so that we can get something that's high fidelity, easy to deploy, and hard to resist for an attacker. But the interesting thing is that when you are paying customer, you get your own private Canary token server. And so you can mint literally hundreds of thousands of these tokens. So we've got some of the large social media companies who pay us like under 20K for the canaries on their network. And then they've got hundreds of thousands of Canary tokens embedded in all of their cloud CI/CD stuff happening automatically. Because if you take someone who's having their SolarWinds moment, when someone compromises that server that you've forgotten about, that also has a GCP cert or an AWS API key, they're going to use it and announce their presence. And suddenly you find out that the key that was only on that server just got used. You've clearly got a problem. All of this stuff is drivable via an API. So you can automate deploying tokens via API so that every time a machine boots in your infrastructure,
I'm picturing embedding these types of things into config vars and test environments and CI/CD pipelines. Like there's a number of environments where breakouts are terrifying, hard to
GitHub
detect.
repos and everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah. So, NVIDIA just released a blog post on how you can embed some of these tokens inside of models so that when someone's actually stealing a model, you're going to find out that your model's just been pulled in. And again, from our side, if I go really quickly to the back of that presentation, which let's do it. So if we take tokens, again, millions used, again, the thing that we got surprisingly lucky for is initially we had lots of customers who were scared to tell people they were running Canary. And one of the things you get accidentally lucky for is when attackers know you've got Canary or Canary tokens, it now slows them down almost into paralysis.
That's an amazing endorsement. Shubs is a champ. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's super elite. And like that, we've actually, like, one of the things that's worked really well for us is lots of traditional attackers have spoken out about, look, I was on an engagement, this stuff caught me, use it. And so, again, summary-wise, and we're on all 7 continents, so literally Canaries in Antarctica. And we've got a page like canary.love, which is just a collection of people saying nice things about us. Because literally that's the only way we grow. But yeah, that's us. Make it quick, make it easy, just work.
So I got a couple questions.
Go for it.
First of all, do you have any kind of warranty? It's a question I'm going to be asking all vendors.
That's a
and
great question.
If you don't have a warranty, that's okay. But is there something that you would absolutely hang your hat on that it absolutely will work 100% of the time?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So we don't have a warranty. And if I were to honestly make a warranty, my warranty would be that we were safe on your network. We spend crazy amounts of time making sure that we won't add risk to your network because of the stuff we do. You'll notice I'm not saying we absolutely guaranteed to catch stuff, because fundamentally we trip wires, and like maybe the attacker never comes to this part of your network. And I think that's one of those things, like empirically we catch attackers and we work, but I wouldn't be able to say that. Yeah, so if I were going to honestly warranty stuff, it's we won't hurt your network. We in the same way that we know it's hard to get deployed, we know that security teams are battling for stuff that then causes disruptions or causes pain, and we try hard to make sure we're not that.
If I could frame this slightly differently, Haroon, and I'm not going to make a CrowdStrike joke because I think every vendor is vulnerable to this. But in all seriousness, a lot of technologies, a lot of tools that we deploy into our networks create additional beachhead surface area. There's new attack surface area, and they're in privileged, advantaged positions back into the network. And that's I think, a very strong proposition, a very strong thing to warrant. I think that's a really great assertion and a guiding principle.
Elite. It's something we think a lot about. So in many ways that we wouldn't even have time to go on here, like canaries that are on your network get their updates from your console, and the update has to be signed by a key that never shows up on the internet. So nobody is going to compromise your console, then use that to send bad commands down to your canary. Like we know that that's a big ask, and we don't take that stuff lightly.
Interesting.
That's good.
I think it's also a good time to discuss a little bit about your roadmap. If you think there's any place or anything that would be important for people to know coming up that you'd like to let them know, it might be interesting for looking at you in the future if they're on the fence or whatever.
No, it's super cool. So internally, we spend a lot of time on 3 things. The one is constantly making it better. That sounds like a cop-out, but we spend lots of time reducing friction in the product. And we've spoken publicly about philosophically where we think lots of companies go wrong with almost a type of checklist development. So does this have attack mapping? Like there's a new framework. Do you map to that thing? Do you also do this thing? And we're very happy to say, no, we don't do that thing because we don't think that matters. And what we think matters is we should be easy, we should be right. So we add new services only when we think it doesn't mess up the noise signal ratio. And we spend as much time removing features as we do adding them. So we spend time making it quicker. Then we spend time trying to invent new detections. So we call Canary tokens, one product, but it's actually currently about 30 products. Because one protects your Entra login, one protects your hosted websites, one is intrusion detection on all of your servers. And we keep inventing new ways that we think give you high fidelity alerting like that. At any given time, people in the company are playing with a bunch of them. And when something ticks the box of being high fidelity and low pain, then it actually makes it to Canary tokens. And the other place that we're currently working on is on doing better cloud native stuff. Now, cloud native stuff is interesting because lots of people immediately ask for, well, why don't you have like a fake Lambda? Why don't you have a fake this? And one of the reasons is because that's not how attackers are attacking clouds just yet. Like, you can replicate cloud native functionality, but what you want to do is, like we've done for this other stuff, be the thing that an attacker goes for when they compromise those clouds. And right now, we're still experimenting with that stuff. And as I was
gonna say, yeah, you could quite easily create like a fake webhook or something, Cloudflare webhook, and all of a sudden you'd have all kinds of pretty interesting signal.
Yeah. So we've got bunches of that stuff at play, and again, what we look for is really high quality signal. So yeah, it's totally on the cards, totally there, and it's stuff we're fiddling with. And yeah, for the most part, that's us. So we keep looking for simple and works. And the way our pricing model works is it just slips into tokens. You get it free. The benefits for Canary slip in, and it's just part of the cost. And that's how it works for us.
Haroon, have you followed up with any of the threat intel or incident response teams to see if they're getting sufficient richness of signal from your alerts? I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, get excited, something's happened. You might have a username, you might have a user agent string, you may fingerprint a browser. There's a body of things that you pass on. Is there any enrichment or identified gaps, or have you explored pulling that string to make sure we're enabling the responders more?
So I'm trying to think. So I don't want to say something that's going to get me into trouble.
Sorry, not trying to trick you up here.
No, it's cool. It's like
let me go a step further.
Security teams will be running Canary. Like it would be rare to find a security team that a security
they've
company.
positioned or implemented as a way that's going to be complementary to their plan already. So they okay,
that
makes sense.
So it's sometimes funny for us because you see lots of vendors who do we now this company partner or that company partner because you join their marketplace.
Yeah, and
almost all of them are running us.
Okay,
because again, it's just a safe fail safe that you rather have than not have. And so we work with most of them to answer that question.
Totally fair. Silly question along those lines. It's brilliant that you use LLMs to elegantly create file constructs and some stuff to stuff into some of the file servers and that kind of thing. Are you stuffing Canary tokens into those? So they're all pre-wired. So if an attacker is pulling down, downloading, opening, manipulating files that they've taken from the file share, are you doing anything to identify?
That's a great question. Yes, you absolutely can. So if you take, did I stop sharing or you guys still seeing my desktop?
You're still sharing. Okay. You're still sharing.
Yeah. So if you went in here and you were creating that file share, that was down there. Where is our
Windows file share?
So if it was a Windows file share and you were creating files, you could totally upload your own files to it. Or you could go in here and say, in here, wow, this is a nested directory. You could go in here and say, I want to create a new file, but I want this file to be tokened. And in this case, the file that you create there would be automatically tokened.
Okay.
And so you'd get the alert from the Canary that said, someone took this file. And then you'd get an alert 3 days later that said, that file's just been opened in insert scary country of your choice. But totally.
I love that. I wish that was by default. There should be a handful that are already Trojan that way. That's just brilliant. I love this.
It's a neat idea.
All right. Well, anything else you want to cover off in the last couple minutes here, Haroon?
No. So for the most part, that's us. We also do a completely free open version for people who don't want to pay us at all. So people can hit canarytokens.org. They can hit opencanary.org. And for the rest of the stuff, they hit canary.tools. Again, we do lots and lots of engineering work to make sure that the stuff's dead simple and just works. And that's our pitch.
That's great. So how do people get in touch with you and or the company?
So I'm noisy on Twitter or X. So I'm Haroon Meer, thinkst.com, canary.tools. At Thinkst Canary is pretty active on Twitter. So we do lots of talking about our features there. But the website is canary.tools, and you'll find links there to hit us.
Great. Well, I gave you plenty of rope, and you did not end up hanging yourself. So congratulations. This is a great demo. Really
Thanks so
appreciate
much.
you coming on, Haroon. All right.
Well,
thanks
super
for
cool.
all the listeners, and please reach out to Haroon if you like it and you want to see more.